The following is a Hoop Ball presentation. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
Hello, and Fantasy NBA Today. My name is Adrian Benjamins, and I'm joined by Neil Rochlani. Neil, how are you?
I'm doing great, Adrian. How are
Good.
you this morning?
Got a little hangover from that draft last night. It was I was like such an overload. It was such an explosion. All year long, I'm searching for draft content, and there's like very little. And then all of a sudden, a week leading into the draft, just an explosion of content just comes out from everywhere, and it's like an overload on my senses to like try to soak up all that information all at once. It's kind of crazy, Neil.
It is pretty crazy. There's so many people out there now talking about it and giving their opinion on it. So, and then of course me as a gambler trying to figure out how to profit from it. So I looked into some prop bets. Didn't really make any. I made one really small one, which did not work out, but. Yeah, I really enjoyed it last night. I couldn't get home until, or I was busy until about the 9th or 10th pick. So when I got home, I got to see the first 9 picks. So then I just started absorbing everything, and I probably spent the next 2 hours just like watching the draft and then reading everything online. So, have you taken it in yet, or what? Do you have any initial thoughts, or what do you think we should do here?
I'm still letting it soak in, but before we get heavy into this. This is a hoop ball presentation. Please feel free to hit Neil and I up on Twitter. You can hit me up at Adrian Benjamins, and Neil, you can hit him up at Ball with Neil. So, Neil, one of the things I was really excited to ask you about is your thoughts on your Chicago Bulls. They had the number 7 pick in this draft. They got a guy named Wendell Carter. What do you think? Are you excited? Are you happy? Are you bummed out? What's going on?
Gosh, I'm ambivalent because I pretty much thought they'd either get Carter or Porter Jr. And I don't know the situation with Porter Jr. Obviously, I think if you've been following the draft, you know that Porter Jr. has some ridiculous upside. At least that is the buzz, and that is the evaluation on him, although he has injuries. So I think it was really surprising he fell to 14. I think that's kind of like the consensus take. As far as a Bulls fan, I don't know. I mean, they don't have a lot of great players. This in this day and in the NBA, you really need like 2 all-stars to compete at a high level and maybe more to win the whole thing. So, and they have maybe one potential all-star, and that's still a potential with Markkanen. And so Michael Porter Jr., I think, had the more likelihood of getting there of these 2 picks. But I like Carter Jr. I think he's going to be a starter for the Bulls at some point this season. I don't know if he'll start off right off the gate, but he will be there. And who knows, maybe he'll develop into a really good player. But I think he's fine for that pick.
So, Neil
I am glad.
I'm here to get you excited about Wendell Carter Jr.
Oh, please do. Get me all excited about Mr. Carter. Okay.
This is one of the most well-rounded bigs in this draft. He gets compared to Al Horford quite a bit because he's got such a great, well-rounded game, can shoot outside, he's got inside game, rebounds well, plays good defense, unlike a few other bigs that went before him in this draft. So I'm hearing he's going to be a really good fit next to Lauri Markkanen, which I like a lot, is that they got a guy that they see in the front court with Lauri, because Lauri's definitely a big part of this future. And I'm really excited about this pick, man. I think they kind of got lucky. I think we're going to look back at this draft in 5 years and say that Wendell Carter maybe is one of the best bigs that came out of this draft. So I think this was a great pick, man, and I'm really glad they didn't get Michael Porter Jr. So Michael Porter Jr., red flags on his medical, not only due to his back, but because of his hip as well. And Neil, I'm hearing from a lot of people, back issues don't usually get better. So back issue can be something that he's going to deal with for the rest of his career. And besides the medical issues, I'm not really sold on Michael Porter Jr. as a player. Neil, I saw some scouting videos where he doesn't have a good handle. So I'm not convinced he's got a great shot. I didn't see him do really well on the college level because we didn't really get to see him due to his injury. So he's got some major question marks, which is why I think he fell to 14. Yes, I do understand on the high school level he showed upside that is as tantalizing as Kevin Durant or some of these elite guys that are now in the NBA, but we just don't know. And I think that the Bulls got a more for sure thing with Wendell Carter. Neil, am I selling you at all, or am I making you feel at all a little bit better here?
I'm going to go buy a jersey. Thank you for making that feel so much better. No. I mean, I know he is one of those in that bucket of really good big men who could break out into a great NBA player, or at the very least, a very good NBA player. So, yeah, I'm hoping he does. I know he shoots the ball well from deep, and he's also, like Al Horford, a good passer for a big man and seems to have a good basketball IQ. So we'll see how he fits in. But I don't want to hijack this to a Bulls podcast, because I know people care more about probably other players than Wendell Carter Jr. So why don't we switch over to some others? Do you want to go through this sequentially, or do you just want to kind of pick out the ones you think?
You know what? This is a fantasy podcast, so let's kind of look at this more for fantasy terms. Since this isn't really a NBA draft podcast and we don't have time to go over each pick, so let's just kind of talk about guys that we're really excited about for fantasy. And of course, we got to start up at the top. DeAndre Ayton. Not only is this guy probably worthy of the number one pick on his own, it's also the perfect storm because he's the perfect fit for the Phoenix Suns. It's like the best player at that spot of the draft meets also the best need for this team. So the Phoenix Suns have a huge lack of talent in their front court. They're getting arguably the best big in this draft. DeAndre Ayton, man, what can you say about this guy? Huge, athletic. He gets compared a lot to guys like Boogie Cousins and Karl Anthony Towns. You got to love it. And for fantasy, I'm really high on this guy for fantasy. I mean, I think he could be easily a 20-point, 10 rebound guy. Now, the biggest knock on him, Neil, is that he's not an elite defender. And I think that kind of got overplayed and overrated because he played the 4 power forward spot in college, so he kind of played away from the basket a little, and I think he's actually a better defender than people are giving him credit for. But my biggest knock on him that I saw is that he had the tendency to take nights off, meaning he's not going 100% intensity all the time. So that's my biggest knock. What do you think of DeAndre Ayton, Neil?
Yeah, I like this fit very well. I've only seen limited videos of him, and all of my evaluation is based on secondary markets, reading other people who I think are really good at a talent evaluation. So, but I do think he's a great fit. I do think he could start from day one. Is that what you're expecting as well? When you say 2010, I guess that he'll be getting, think he'll get like 30 plus minutes a night.
I think just and only because what's his competition? Alex Len, Tyson Chandler. So I think just because his competition is so bad, he's gonna step in right away, and what a great fit next to Josh Jackson, Devin Booker, just the perfect trio to build on. The future is bright for the Phoenix Suns. Love DeAndre Ayton for fantasy. What a great pick. Let's move on to pick 2. Another guy that should be pretty good for fantasy. Again, because the Kings are kind of lacking talent in their front court, Marvin Bagley, another guy who could be a 2010 guy right off the bat, an elite offensive guy. He's going to have no problem scoring right off the bat. Really great athlete. They call him a rim-to-rim runner, bouncy, has a great second jump, great rebounder. Neil, the big problem on him, though, not a great defender. Not only not a great defender, doesn't even show defensive instincts. So he gets compared to a lot as like more athletic Zebo. He reminds me a lot of Chris Bosh, a left-hander, good outside shooter, good inside game. I do like him for fantasy. I think he's going to be, as I said, a 2010 guy. Neil, what are your thoughts on Marvin Bagley?
The one thing I worry about there is, Dave Yeager coaching. He's pretty much a defensive-minded coach, in that if he can't play defense, he may not play you. And he's still working they still have those veterans on the team, if I'm not mistaken, like Zebo. So I think if he gets the minutes, he could be a starter. He could definitely put up some decent numbers. I have no idea yet how to project that out, but I worry about his minutes. They've got a lot of, I know like you said, they don't have a lot of talent, but they've got still Scal still there, right? In Sacramento. I'm not sure what his future is. They still have Zebo on the roster. I'm not sure if he's going to get a lot of minutes again, or they're ready to move forward with the project. I just worry if he doesn't play defense well, he may be in the doghouse the first half of the season. That's my concern. So I'll have to see how it looks in preseason and how the rotation the buzz starts to get out of, where he's going to go in terms of playing time.
Yeah, I agree with you. The defense is definitely an issue. It could keep him off the court at times, but they used their number 2 overall pick on this guy. They got some criticism for taking Bagley here, I think, because they could have got a franchise-type player in Doncic. Some people think that Jaren Jackson Jr. Has got higher upside, but I think it was a safe pick. And also, too, Bagley was one of the few prospects that wanted to go to the Kings. He was one of the few guys that worked out for the Kings. So, that probably played a big part in them taking Bagley too as well. Let's get a guy that wants to be here. And don't get me wrong, man, as far as offensive goes, he may be one of the best players in this draft as far as offense goes. Has a great outside shot, inside game. I think he's going to be good for fantasy. All right, let's move on. Neil, one of the biggest surprises of this draft was Atlanta drafting Luka Doncic, then shipping him to Dallas for Trae Young. And this is a head-scratcher to me, Neil. Trae Young, not a guy that I believe in because super small, cannot play any defense on this level. I think he's just going to get destroyed. He's going to get exposed on the NBA level. He showed one of the things he does have is Steph Curry-like range on his shot. But I don't know, man. I don't know if this guy is going to be able to compete at the NBA level the way a lot of people think he will. So this is a real head-scratcher to me, Neil. I think Luka Doncic is going to be he's going to be a franchise-type player, and I think we're going to look back on this in 3 or 4 years and say, wow, what a crazy move. What do you think about it, Neil?
Yeah, from everything that I've read and everything that I understand, I think Doncic is going to be someone who has all-star potential and really good starter potential out of the gate. He's already played against NBA competition, so I don't see why he couldn't play a lot of minutes at Dallas. He's the one that I'm definitely highest on for fantasy value going into the season. I'm assuming he's going to start next to Dennis Smith Jr., and then he gets so many different stat categories, rebounds, assists, he'll get points, he'll get three-pointers, he'll get some defensive stats as well. So really high on Doncic. As far as like the franchise as well too, I think Doncic is so much more NBA ready than Trae Young. Trae Young is still kind of a mystery to me. I did get to see him play a fair amount last season. So I tend to watch some Big 12 basketball, but like you, I worry about his defense. I worry about his ability to create against NBA defenses. He gets compared to Steph Curry, obviously a lot, which is crazy. But one thing people compare him to is the shooting. But what makes Steph so amazing is not just the shooting, but his ability to his ball handling ability and his ability to create the start and stop motion and just get guys way off their comfort zone by just his way of being able to handle the basketball. So Trae Young is trying to emulate that. He still has some room to grow, obviously, to get there. But when I would say I was with you or on your evaluation probably about a week ago, but now that I've read so much stuff, I'm starting to get the Kool-Aid on Trae Young. So maybe I think he has potential. And then the reason, then Atlanta willing to basically take him at 5, with the trade and then get a future first round pick is saying they think he could be the point guard of the future. I've already seen some information on, Dennis Schroeder trying to be moved now and putting Trae Young in there from the get-go. So we will see how he does. I think from a fantasy perspective, if he gets that starter's role, he will get a lot of assists and points. The one thing will be his turnovers will be high if you're in a 9-cat league, and also his field goal percent will be terrible this year. So that's my initial thoughts. I wouldn't draft him in terms of even if he gets a lot of minutes. I think he's going to be a killer in those two categories. So, but I think he has. I will see. I'm rooting for him. I hope he does well.
I'm really glad that you mentioned his assists because he led the NCAA in I believe points and assists, and that's no small feat right there. He is a great passer. He's got great vision. So I think that's why he kind of gets compared to Steph a lot too. Steph also one of the best passers in the NBA. So he does have that going for him. Can find the open guy. Probably the best outside shot of all the guys coming into the NBA. About his size, really small, his physicality. One of the things when he started that college year off that past season, he was on fire. He was insane. And then he wore down as the season went off, really tapered off about the halfway point of the year on, was not the same player. And I think physically it got to him. And I just can't imagine he's going to have elite athletes going at him every night. The NBA season is much, much different than a college season. So I'm really worried about Trae Young. And, the one thing, too, it takes point guards a little longer to figure out this league than it does other positions. It's a very difficult spot to play. So, also, even though I'm not so high on Trae Young, you Trae Young fans, don't freak out if he has a rough start or if he kind of starts slow. Steph Curry, he didn't set the world on fire his rookie year. So it takes these guys some time to get used to the speed of the game and whatnot. Real quick, I want to touch again on Luka Doncic. Gets compared to guys like James Harden, Manu Ginobili because of his all-around game, the way he can handle the rock. Good passer, good scorer, high basketball IQ. The one knock on him, one of the comps I really like that I hear, like a bigger 6'8" Steve Nash. I love that. And so, man, this guy's going to be amazing. I can't wait to see him play in the NBA. One of the most decorated European guys ever. He's a EuroLeague MVP, EuroLeague champion at the age of 19, Neil. He joined Real Madrid at the age of 16. I believe that the competition in the EuroLeague is higher than like Division I college competition. So I think he's been facing higher competition than these college guys, and he's excelled on that level. He's been the best player on that level. So I just think it's crazy that Atlanta passed this guy up. But anyways, real quick, let's just touch on a couple of these other guys. We're going kind of long on the draft coverage. Jaren Jackson Jr. is real interesting for Memphis. Mo Bamba, I don't really like in Orlando because they're so crowded with Vucevic and Aaron Gordon. They got Biyombo there as well. Hey, Neil, I was really hoping that Bamba was going to fall to your Bulls. I was really bummed when Orlando took Bamba. What are your thoughts, Neil?
Yeah, don't they also have Jonathan Isaac down there?
Small forward, but you're absolutely right, man. That is a crowded front court. I was really disappointed when they took Mo Bamba, only because Mo Bamba's probably not going to be relevant for fantasy for a few seasons. And if he went to the right team, like the Mavericks or the Bulls, we'd probably be drafting this guy as like a top six, like a 6th round, 5th round draft pick if he was if he went to the right team. So I'm pretty bummed on that.
Yeah, I don't think he'll have a great fantasy season or reality season coming out of the gate. Maybe in the second half of the season, if they go into tank mode and they want to play him a lot, he might put up some really good numbers at that point. But right now, yeah, it doesn't look like he's going to get a lot of playing time. Jaren Jackson Jr., I worry about that too with that front court. With I don't know how many minutes he's going to get to. This is going to be interesting to see. Although people talk about him being perhaps the best player in the draft too. I mean, the best big in the draft at least. And then, is there anyone else? Do you see? So we kind of gone through the top 7. Is there anyone else that you think is fantasy
the
like
only guys that stand
top
out,
100?
Kevin Knox is really interesting with the. He went 9 with the New York Knicks, only because the Knicks are really lacking talent out on the wing. So he's pretty interesting. Nobody else, and it's something maybe we'll kind of touch on as we get closer to the fantasy season. We'll kind of do like a rookie show and touch more on these rookies, because it'll be really interesting to see what happens in free agency, what happens in the preseason, in summer league. We'll get a better idea of some of these rookies that went later and who could be viable for fantasy purposes. Neil, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I agree.
On the 2018 NBA draft?
Yeah, I'll just jump out quickly and just say, in terms of fantasy purposes for rookies coming in, I typically avoid them because they get too much buzz and they usually don't pan out. So they're really like a high risk draft picks in fantasy. So I typically wouldn't pick a rookie until like the 6th round in a 12-team league. This year, I think there could be a couple exceptions. So we can get into that as we get closer to the season. But obviously, right off the bat, like you said, 8 and Doncic are the 2 that might fit that category. But yeah, I mean, obviously, we're gonna have to see summer league, and we're gonna have to see rotations to have any idea of the sort of the minutes these guys are going to get starting off the season. And then obviously there's the stash category for some of these guys for second half of the season, if that's a strategy to deploy in your league. So you ready to take on the final team?
Let's do it. The Brooklyn
breakdown?
Nets, yeah?
Yeah, the Brooklyn Nets. I am looking at their player rater. I think the first thing that jumped out at me is no one averaged over 30 minutes for Brooklyn last year.
I really hate that, because I was targeting a lot of Brooklyn Nets because they have a really high-paced, fantasy-friendly offense. So I really hate that a lot of these guys didn't get heavy minutes, because they got a lot of fantasy-friendly players in Spencer Dinwiddie, D'Angelo Russell. I liked Alan Crabb, Karis LeVert. DeMar Carroll played pretty well this season. Rondé Hollis-Jefferson is fantasy viable, has a nice all-around game. Jared Allen, I'm really high on Jared Allen coming on this season. I'm going to be moving this guy up on my draft board. I may take a shot on Jared Allen a little early because I want him in like all my leagues. So there's a lot of fantasy friendly players, and it really bums me out that they're not getting heavier minutes. What do you think, Neil?
Yeah, when I look at Brooklyn's season last year, I really think they were just playing as many guys as possible, trying to figure out who could be part of their future and who they want to keep around going forward, and who's going to be potential starter, who's going to be a potential role player. I think they were just trying to figure things out. So they really didn't do anything other than that from the way that I watched or took in their season. So I don't know how it's going to be this year. It's going to be similar. They get Jeremy Lin back, which will throw a wrench into their backcourt in terms of the minutes. And then, like you said, Jared Allen should be in a starting position, I'm assuming. And I'm looking at his minutes in the last 30 games. He played 24 and a half minutes, and he had 2.6 blocks, which is an incredible rate, even though he wasn't known as a huge shot blocker, and had 6 rebounds. So I'm curious to see how buzzy he gets as we get into the beginning of the season, because I think he is the one guy who I maybe trust the most. I don't know what's even going to happen at point guard between D'Angelo Russell and Spencer Dinwiddie. Dinwiddie looked better than Russell, but Russell has sort of that pedigree and that high value. They spend a lot of money on him. So does that mean they're going to try to force him in the one spot, or are they going to play those two guys together? It just looks like a really crowded team right now. And I like you said, when there's a lot of crowds, it's hard to get fantasy value out of that. I typically don't draft players with less than 30 minutes. Unless they're very efficient or a specialist in one category. And there's no one on this team right now that fits that. I could see myself taking Dinwiddie if he's a starter, because he may not get drafted high because his name recognition isn't that great. But other than that, I'm not really sure. I'm still trying to figure this team out.
I agree with you 100%. This is a team, like, other than Jared Allen, no one really jumps out at me as, like, this is a must-have guy. They are log-jammed in that backcourt. Spencer Dinwiddie showed us this past season that he's a starting quality player. And they got D'Angelo Russell. They got a healthy Jeremy Lin coming back, although I feel very odd saying healthy and Jeremy Lin in the same sentence, because I can't remember Jeremy Lin ever staying healthy for a long period of time. So also out on the wing, you got Alan Crabb, Karis LeVert, who's a solid player, DeMar Carroll, Joe Hare. It's crowded. Like, I don't know how and you have mentioned earlier in the show, their coach, he doesn't commit to one guy. He spreads the minutes out around, and I don't like that for fantasy. So, I'll probably take a shot on some of these guys, like you mentioned, later in my drafts. I do kind of like Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, although I wish he shot it better, but I do like the defensive stats, the steals. And I don't know, Neil. The only guy I feel really confident about drafting is Jarrett Allen, because he seems to be the clear winner in that front court. I'm not worried about Okafor at all. And there's really nobody else. Oh, we had a scare earlier in the week. Dwight Howard got traded there for a split second, and everyone was jumping ship on the Jared Allen hype train. And then quickly it was announced that Dwight Howard was working on a buyout, and the hype train was at full speed again. So that was
yeah. Oh boy, yeah, Dwight Howard. That was big news. I wonder where Howard ends up and if he becomes relevant at all, because he did have a decent season last year, fantasy wise. So yeah, I liked Alan Crabb at times last year as a shooting guard. Put up some good 3-pointers and some good points. It's just that, like you said, it's going to be crowded. Jeremy Lin comes back, Dinwiddie, and also D'Angelo Russell in the backcourt. I wonder if Russell does get undervalued because of this, and maybe they're going to force him in that role and allow him to just kind of do his thing and see what he's capable of still, since he had like an injury-plagued season last year. That might be one guy who might be worth drafting late if it looks like he's going to be starting and he doesn't really get much preseason hype. But I'm with you. I think Jared Allen's probably the safest one on this team to pick in terms of, if you had to pick one on your roster to start all year, it would probably be Jared Allen, because I really don't know where else to go. I like a lot of these guys, but I don't love any of them. I would like if Joe Harris got 30-plus minutes, I would like him. If Rondé Hollis-Jefferson got 30-plus minutes, I would like him. If, saying you could say the same thing about a handful of these guys, but I'm expecting them to also just be in a timeshare. So it's all going to be 29 to 25 minutes kind of range for a lot of these guys. And that's just, there's so many better options when that's the case. So yeah. I don't know what to do about Brooklyn. I'm going to have to see, I guess, what news comes out in the offseason and then into the preseason in terms of rotations. But I do expect them not to I expect them to have so much depth and so much closeness between the players that there will be a lot of timeshares.
I agree with you 100%. Let's just see what happens in free agency during the offseason. Let's see how things shake out, how the rotation looks in Summer League. Karis LeVert, a guy that I may take a shot on like with my last pick, or he'll definitely be on my watch list going into the season, because I love his game. I love the defensive stats. Kind of reminds me of like a Josh Richardson type. So let's just see what happens. But I agree with you, man. Not very excited about any of these guys. D'Angelo Russell, who you touched on, I was really high on that guy coming into this past season. And, it just kind of let me down. Besides the injury issues he has, he also is a little inefficient, doesn't shoot it well, doesn't shoot a great percentage, turnover issues. So I was expecting a lot more from him. So even though I think he could definitely be worth targeting and he could definitely put up some good value, not someone I'm like mega high on. So yeah, that's about it, Neil. Any closing thoughts on the Brooklyn Nets?
I hope they have a better season. I know their fan base are trying to grow, so hopefully they can start winning some games. Fantasy-wise, I think for me it's sort of wait and see. It was really disappointing last year for a lot of these guys, and I think they're all young and getting better, so someone could break out as they go into their third, fourth, fifth year in the league, so we'll see. Dinwiddie's probably the biggest promise in terms of talent. It's just a matter of how many minutes he'll get now that Lynn's coming back, and D'Angelo Russell, I'm assuming, is going to be fully healthy. So that's my concern.
All right, Neil. We touched on the draft a little bit. We closed out the team reviews with the Brooklyn Nets. Neil, any big plans for the weekend?
I am going away for the weekend. A little bit of I'm going like to a campground up in Wisconsin.
I was just camping at Kern River last week. So camping's a lot of fun, man. It's nice to recharge those batteries.
Yeah, it's just not that warm here. It's still it's not really summery yet. So that's my concern. Other than that, though, yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. How about you? What are you up to this weekend?
I feel like this is finally the first weekend where I have nothing going on, and I'm like looking forward to that. Having nothing to do, man. I just want to sit on the couch, maybe watch some World Cup soccer, just relax and just do nothing. All right, Neil, it's been great. Hey, everyone, just want to remind you guys again, please feel free to hit Neil and I up on Twitter, at Adrian Benjamins. Hit Neil, at Ball with Neil. Send us questions. We'd love to answer some questions on the show. Thank you guys for listening. This has been a Hoop Ball presentation. We'll see you guys next week.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.